Welcome to the Happy 365 podcast, where we talk about all hot topics to do with employment law, performance coaching and company wellbeing, and we discuss what makes shiny happy people. I'm Louise Otton, the Executive Performance Coach at Law 365.
I'm Megan O'Hara, I'm the Employment Law Partner at Law 365.
And today we're joined by Kim Simmonds, our CEO.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, good to have you on here. Brilliant. So today we're going to delve into how we promote happiness and a good work-life balance. We're going to explore our journey, what worked, what didn't work, what the results have been like, and what we can pass on to Microsoft partners and businesses that's particularly relevant in the current business.
Superb.
So Kim, we're going to have a discussion today about the things that you've done to help deliver happiness at Law 365. But before we jump into that, we like to ask our guests, tell us one thing that makes you happy that we wouldn't necessarily know about.
Oh, that's a question, isn't it? So I think the thing that makes me happy, that most people would be really surprised about maybe or don't know about it, is that I love meditating and it makes me very happy. So it's a really important part of my daily routine and it helps me center for the day. So that's my one thing that really makes me happy.
Excellent.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds very, very good. A great start to the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Lou?
Okay.
Do you remember what, or do you want a new one? Do you remember?
Well, my favourite thing that really makes me happy is getting into a clean bed.
Fresh sheets.
If I could do it every day, I would be happy.
Yeah.
It's too much washing though.
It is a lot of washing, isn't it? And drying.
Yeah.
And not good for the environment.
No,
but other than that,
yeah, exactly. It's all good. How about you, Megan? What was yours?
Mine was sitting down in the middle of the day and watching Doctors. Very cerebral, very high flying, amazing stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. Great, I love that. A bit of a mind switch off.
It is. Thank you. Mind switch off. That's it.
Excellent. Okay, so should we jump into it then? Yeah. Over to you, Megan, then. I think you were going to...
Yeah, well, I think Kim was going to tell us a little bit about herself and how she came to create Law 365.
Ooh, okay. So I'm the CEO and founder of Law 365. I actually originally was called Simmonds Law, but we rebranded a few years ago. So I was pregnant with my daughter when I was working for another law firm. And I just didn't see very good examples of women making partner and able to sort of have it all, you know, being able to be there for their kids, especially newborns, but also would be able to climb the ladder quite easily. And so that was one of my big drivers was, can I change that for me, for firstly, just for myself, for my life, for having, you know, being a new mum at that time. So that was one of the big drivers of why Law 365 was created. I wanted to create this new environment, this new sort of culture, especially for women. It was a big part of my drive. And then the second component was I honestly hadn't seen good examples of excellent client care.
Right.
So I've worked for 3 other law firms and don't get me wrong, they all had a good level of client care, just it wasn't excellent. And I sort of saw how frustrated the clients were when they were paying top whack for legal services, and really that sort of feels like, you know, a pinch in their pocket, to then not really hearing from their lawyers for a while and not knowing where they are on the deal, and that frustration that they felt. I really felt their frustration. I've been a client myself and I felt that frustration as the client, not just as a lawyer. So it was really sort of helping that. And obviously the Microsoft partner space was because at the time I was really involved in a Microsoft partner business, helping them with their legal contracts and really getting under the hood of what they kind of needed to know, what specialist legal advice, and sort of bringing in my specialization at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the culture at previous law firms you've been at, how did you feel about those? What was the difference?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because I've worked for big law, as we like to call it, for a big American law firm in New York, which again, the American culture is totally different to the English culture. I mean, we all know the American culture is they have a very strong work ethic to the point of there's no well-being, really. And I was an M&A associate, so it was sort of, you know, regular 100-hour weeks of working, to a sort of regional firm that was a lot better with their work-life balance. But again, it was more other aspects of that culture, sort of raising women up, you know, and sort of bringing in more of a entrepreneurial flair. And then sort of the last firm, again, quite a medium-sized company, law firm. and again, not really seeing many women at the top, so not really having that demographic. So I've gone through big law, medium and small, just to get a flavour of what it was like to be in all three different organisations, and sort of learnt a lot from that.
Yeah, and this kind of sounds like there's similarities but also differences across the board.
Yeah.
And what have you really tried to instill then at Law 365 that's created that change, culture change?
Yeah, I mean, when I started the firm, those elements were really key to me. You know, being able to promote women to rise to the top without having to sacrifice the childcare, to bring in that flexibility that, you know, 8 years ago just wasn't there, and I was sort of breaking barriers with that. We were working from home way before COVID, so, you know, having those practices in place, to understanding why we become advisors, why do we do what we do. It's not just sort of you work with the client, you leave them there. It's that total care from start to finish, which brought about the subscription service that we have, to enable lawyers to really be able to help their clients more, you know, to having a really nice culture that people felt cared for, genuinely cared for, and that they matter. It's not just about the profits and the numbers over their heads. And we sort of really made waves with that. We've won lots of awards for that, and I think that's really imperative to the business. What
would you say is your purpose, and how do you get people to come along with you on the journey?
So my purpose is, I mean, my sort of business purpose, if you like, is to help Microsoft partners grow with less risk, okay? And the reason that strapline came about was I truly cared about this market. I was very, very close to a Microsoft partner business for a long time, and seeing them grow from sort of a 20-person business to over 100 to then over 1,000 was just super exciting. And watching them need the right help to put processes and procedures in place, but also to minimize their legal risks so that they could grow. So that really is a main purpose for me in terms of the business goal. Taking people on that journey. You know, one of the things that lawyers in the company really do understand is that these guys are very important to the marketplace, right? Without Microsoft partners, businesses don't have the right tools and implementation. So they are really helping advise crucial businesses out there. We saw that in COVID, you know, when absolutely people needed more managed services, when we were all working remotely, and security around that. So that's a really big drive for me. I think on a personal level, my purpose is to just help people find their happiness in their workplace. Can't solve that problem. People have to find their own happiness too, but implement practices and give them tools to really help themselves get there. It's not sort of feeding them happiness, because you can't do that, but it's just showing them ways that they can help themselves to achieve that, and putting a really good framework around what would be their really important goals to feel happy in a workplace, you know.
And what do you do when you come across people who aren't aligned to that purpose? So we talk about it a lot, don't we, in Law 365, like aligning to the values and getting people to understand what it is that's important to them. But what happens when you've got you noticing that somebody's not on that journey with you?
I think, to be honest, when people aren't aligned, they tend to exit at that point. And it's not a bad thing for anyone. It's just people understand what they need as they go through life. And sometimes it's aligned at the right point when they start, and it's not aligned later. You can't sort of control that. But, you know, the alignment is really critical, I think, when you're looking at interview stage. So you need to understand your deeper purpose. You need to understand what sort of personalities and what drives those individuals to ensure that they are going to be coming on this journey from the get-go, rather than figure that stuff out after, you know, hiring that person. So, I mean, it's always sad when people go, but at the same time, you know, and you know, Lou, because I've encouraged this, you know, having you come in as an internal coach as well for many years, I say to my staff, sometimes coaching will show you a different path. It doesn't necessarily mean you will stay here, but actually I'd rather you go somewhere where you're actually happier than stay somewhere where you're not. And that's my true belief about it.
And that's why it's so important to have that purpose clear, isn't it, and your values clear, because it can be the kind of guiding point when someone isn't on track. You can come back to that and say, this is what we're doing, this is what's important. If you're if you're struggling to align to it, what does that mean for you? Is it right?
And I think that value exercise we've done as a company was really important. But you, as a business owner, especially a small business owner, you've got to understand your values first and foremost, and then you build from that, and you sort of surround yourself by the right leadership team who believe in the same values, and then you look at who's coming in, and do they believe in those values as well. And you tend to get the same values with everyone when you do the company-wide exercise, because actually you've hired in the way that your value system works. And I think that's quite critical. Yeah.
So why do you think happiness is important in the workplace, and how does that relate to the happy 365 pillars that we've got?
It's a great question. So as I said before, happiness is really important to get the structure right, to help to give people the right tools to find their own happiness. You can't sort of impose happiness on people. And Happy 365 really helps that initiative. So we look at health. We look at, how do you support someone's health? Because health is very important, something you can't buy in life, right? So how do you sort of give them the tools to really help themselves with that? Autonomy, that is something that you can get more involved in. You can look at the progression piece as well. Autonomy and progression, it's how do you give people autonomy? How do you get away from the micromanagement sort of, old style of leadership, if you like, to really making them feel like they're owning what they're doing. The progression piece is really key as well, because people want to know, how do they progress? They want to understand, what is it that they can expect? When can they expect it? They need to know how do they show you that they are key superstars, right? They want to know, what is it that you think they should be achieving? And then, you've got your purpose, which is really deeply entrenched, I think, in what a business should be looking at, because otherwise you're just the same as everyone else. What delineates you from everyone else? And, the why is your connection, that important community piece, that's the connection to one another. We're social beings, and that's really sort of been under the sort of limelight because of the hybrid working that we're now doing. How do you achieve that? To bring people together, to bond, to work as a team, that collaboration piece that's so critical in a business.
So what kind of connective collaboration, what kind of things have you done, what initiatives have you done at Law 365 to kind of help that?
Yeah, well, we've done several. I think from when we sort of had COVID, we were doing things like cocktail making online. You probably remember.
I remember them well. Surprisingly. I say that.
It's good. Well done. Good memory. Wine and cheese nights, lots of booze.
Ace.
We did rum and tasting. Oh my gosh, so much booze.
So much booze.
But we also did things like smoothie making and chocolate making.
And with the kids as well.
We brought the kids in, and we brought, there were lots of new starters at that point, so we also brought in some of the new starters to come and join these sort of fun socials with us online. And then after COVID, we've done more things sort of where we've been able to collaborate more. So we've done lots of charitable events, picking litter for one of our mental health days. We have done legal walks. We've done so many lovely things.
Brilliant things, haven't we? Forest bathing was a recent
forest
thing,
bathing, which I know sounds a bit woo-woo to a lot of people.
Brilliant. It was brilliant.
But actually, it's amazing how people actually want to get out to nature, and they just don't know how to fit that into their day-to-day lives. So we take 2 mental health days off in the year where we effectively close the office down, one in May and one in October. And we try to do these more collaborative and community-based activities together for half the day, have nice lunch together, and then sort of give everyone the afternoon off. And that's really key to sort of looking at this stuff.
It's like dual purpose, isn't it? Because people, the team get together, don't they, to kind of spend time together, which is lovely. And then for the litter picking or the legal walk, there's a community element to it, which is really, really lovely, isn't it?
Yeah,
really
definitely.
Nice.
And we've done we've had experts come in and talk to us about particular things, haven't we? So we've had a men's health expert come in and talk about testicular cancer and well-being, how important it is. And we've had a lady doctor come in and talk about menopause. So really trying to support everybody within the organisation for different reasons.
Yeah, and I think bringing those people in is really important, because we don't have the skill set internally to know how to educate people on these topics, right? And listening to other people's stories is very inspirational. Yeah. So yeah, it was fantastic to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so what's been, what's not worked? Because obviously when we talk about the happy model, there's so many things to think about and so many things to implement. What do you think's been the biggest challenge rather than what's not worked, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the hybrid working has been quite a big challenge. I think having people come in on different days and sort of, you want to encourage flexibility, but you also want to bring in that community. So, some people were quite resistant to certain days, and even 2 days a week was tough for some people. But they forget that actually other people need other people.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you have to put yourself second to the wider need, and that's sometimes tough for some people. So that's been a real challenge, trying to explain that without it sounding like it's mandatory or it's coming from the top. It's not. It's actually thinking about what is it that the community feel part of our culture and our values actually needs to achieve those goals. Some of the other challenges that we've had, I think, is around getting that collaboration going. A lot of people have been talking about how it's harder to collaborate when you're working off teams. You want to be in the same room, you want to feed off that energy together and create that buzz, and that becomes tough if people are getting used to working from home and kind of working in their siloed positions and not really kind of doing that teamwork or collaboration that is critical to a business.
Yeah, makes a big difference.
Yeah, it really does. And we were talking the other day, weren't we, about how, as a growing business, getting the structure and processes in place that you need to support some of this, like the progression piece and the autonomy piece. That's been really challenging, hasn't it?
It's been challenging because it takes a lot of time to think about it. When you've come from a business that's been sort of finger in the air to a more established, structured business, you don't necessarily have the skill set as well to know how to formulate the right KPIs. For example, I'm sitting in the marketing team now. I have no idea about marketing. I'm learning on the job, which is typical of most business owners who are small business owners. But obviously it's very important to try and show my team that I'm supportive of their career progression. So, for that example, I asked my marketing team to come together to figure out what their KPIs should be. So then I could start from something that actually they already have thought about themselves. But that sort of stuff is really missing in the marketplace. I think people just don't know. Yeah.
And what do you think on the flip side? That's obviously from the business owner's perspective. What do you think employees are looking for, looking at the market at the moment? What are they looking for out of a role and an employer and a business? What do you think they're looking for?
I think they do. People do like structure, but they also want flexibility and entrepreneurial ism, if you like. They want the ability to come into a business and sort of make their role into the role that suits their skill set and their needs. And that becomes quite difficult when the employer has a different viewpoint on that or just needs a certain element from them. But I do think that they're looking for that sort of still structured but flexible approach, which is hard to get right. And you're never going to please everyone with that. So it's a bit of a hard task, really.
And do you think there's a gap between what the employer wants and expects and what employees want and expect? Is there like a discrepancy sometimes between the two?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult position to be in. And it's funny because when you become an employer, I was an employee for many years, but I haven't been an employee for over 8 years, and that's tough because I've forgotten what it feels like to be an employee, to have that necessary empathy of what it feels like, because I've got a business to run and I've got to support all the salaries in my business, and I've got to make some difficult decisions to support that ongoing business, and it is difficult. And I think employers have got to take just a look at how it felt when they were employees, just to remember those moments, remember the times that they felt frustrated and why they felt frustrated and what is it that they needed. And we know Happy 365 is what employees need. So really looking at have they got that in place, and trying to be as empathetic as possible, really.
So what advice would you have to give to Microsoft partners that are thinking about this, that they might want to implement instead of having to give salary increases?
Yeah, I think people do have to look at what other benefits they can offer, because obviously, salaries are being looked at the moment, and but the economy is what it is, so you can't always just dish out more cash for your employees. It's not very practical and puts the business under strain. So the benefits that you could do, the sort of quick wins, as you like, if you like, things like have their birthdays off. We've just done that. We've also given people 3 days back from their holiday allowance for the Christmas closure, because we closed the office anyway, so it kind of makes sense. We have given people more compassionate leave than we did before. We've enhanced the maternity and paternity pay as well. And again, it's a small business, but these are things that you can do. We're looking at salary sacrifice. We're looking at other things as well. We've given Vitality Healthcare, which is a really nice healthcare, because it sort of enables them to be rewarded the more they go and sort of work out and do exercises. We also have team competitions, by the way, on like what pods or what teams will drum up the most miles in terms of walking, which is quite nice. So really just looking at holidays. I know a lot of people are doing 4-day weeks, and they've seen a lot of productivity go up with that. So that's very much being looked at. And lots of benefits around that are sort of easier things to manage than just finding the money to bring in more salaries. And I think people are receptive to that.
Yeah.
Though people need, obviously, cash to live, it's very, very important and must not be neglected. People also want a life. And I think COVID has really thrown that up, in the sense of people wanting to spend more time with their families, rather than escape them, I guess, as it used to be.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Us.
Thank you. Great to speak to you.
Thank you.